Today we're going back to the waiver wire and we're looking at 10 wide receivers we can pick up to help us set our lineups, help us build our teams, help us get some stashes. Maybe we can hit on somebody on the back nine of the season, but what you really need to do right now is click that subscribe button. Tap it with your finger on your phone. Click it with your mouse on your computer, whatever you need to do, because we're covering the waiver wire every day. We're going deep on that. Then on the end of the week, we're helping you set those lineups. And then all throughout the middle, we're helping you get those trades done. Click that subscribe button. Stop missing out. Let's look at these 10 wide receivers. And we're going to start off with Josh Downs. He needs to stop being on waivers. I know he's getting rostered more. I know he should be rostered in every league by now. But he's still sitting on waivers in a lot of leagues. He needs to be picked up. This should be the last time I have him in the series. It really should be. But he's been consistent the last 3 weeks. Over double-digit PPR fantasy points. Gardner Minshew's there. He's slinging the rock. Week 7, he saw 6 targets. He's averaging 6.7 targets per game and a 20% target share. Here's a rule of thumb. If there's a wide receiver sitting there on waivers and he's getting a 20% target share, pick him up and play the matchups with him. He's got a 20% target share right now, 27 last week. He's running a lot of routes. He's seeing opportunities. He's not getting deep targets all the time, but still he's getting enough workload where he can turn something out on any given Sunday. If you're getting a 20-plus target share, you really shouldn't be on waivers. You should be looked at as a player you can play the matchups with at the least, because you're getting enough volume in the passing game where in a plus matchup you could be a reliable option. We're getting that out of Josh Downs right now. Now we're looking at Tank Dell. He's been out with a concussion. He hasn't been productive for a while, but he was running hot for a bit, week 2 and week 3. But still, he's going to be coming back sooner than later. Good guy to add, a good guy to pick up on the back nine of the season. And think about this, he was the top dropped wide receiver last week because we covered that on ESPN. So he's sitting there on a lot of waiver wires. He's a guy that can give you some upside, especially in this Houston offense. We've already seen it. We've already saw it happen. He can get you almost 30 fantasy points in a game. He can do that. He can drop those dimes on your lineup. He's a guy you want on the back end of your roster. We've seen it happen. We know the upside is there. Now we're looking at Rashee Rice. We talk about him every week, and I understand why he's on waivers. He's only seeing about 5 targets a game. It's really hard to count on a wide receiver seeing a 13% target share, but he's seeing a 13% target share in a very potent offense. He's one of the top wide receivers in this offense at seeing targets because they spread the ball around so much. And prior to these last few weeks, he was being productive every other game in a fantasy sense, more like wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2 range. But he's reeled off 3 straight games with over double-digit PPR fantasy points. Something you want to take note of. Maybe down the back nine of the season, the last half, we see him get more volume, more air yards, more deep ball attempts. That happens. We get better numbers here. But still, for somebody on the back end of your roster, he's a guy you can play the matchups with. Chiefs are in the AFC West. He's going to have some juicy matchups here towards the end of the season. Now we're looking at Jackson Smith-Njigba. Kind of been down this year considering what we were expecting for him since he's a first-round draft pick. However, he is getting a decent target share at 17.5% on the season. Prior to that, a couple weeks ago, he was sitting around 20%. He wasn't far off from DK Metcalf and Lockett when it comes to targets. However, his air yards per game, 28.7, has been on the low. He's got an ADOT of around 4. Last week with Metcalf out, 7 targets and almost a 30% target share. So again, these guys are siphoning off each other, stealing each other's work. He needs somebody out really for him to be productive. However, you're still getting volume. You're still getting touches. You're still getting targets. Maybe you want to make that investment as a stash for the back half of the season, considering we saw that upside. We saw what he can do on the field, considering he's a high-end rookie, considering everything. Maybe you can catch a splash play on the last few games of the season. Now we're looking at Jalen Hyatt, another rookie wide receiver. Had a good week 5, 9.5 fantasy points, but an 18.5% target share, 5 targets, so he's getting volume in the passing game. He's also getting those deep targets because that's what his game is built around. So don't look at him as a consistent asset. Look at him as that guy with the Will Fuller effect. Deep targets, boom bust weeks, averaging 2 targets a game, 6.5% target share, but he's starting to ramp up more when it comes to work rate and usage. 19 routes a game, but again, he gets the deep balls when he's on the field. He gets those deep targets. He brings one in, you're good to go. Now we're looking at Kendrick Bourne, a wide receiver who's getting workload, a wide receiver who's getting volume. But the fantasy production's not there. It's very spotty. However, when you look at the wide receivers on waivers, very spotty. So this is why we're going this route. 7 targets last week. He's averaging 7.3 targets a game. So he's on point with that. A 20% target share. Rule of thumb is wide receivers getting a 20+% target share. You can play the matchups with. Hope for the best. See what happens. Mix and match them with the other wide receivers on your roster. Also 77 air yards per game. Fundamentals say he needs to be rostered. He needs to be on a team because he's seeing enough targets. He's seeing enough air yards for him to be successful in plus matchups. Thing is, he's on the Patriots, so things are naturally going to be up and down due to the nature of this offense. Now we're looking at Jaden Reed. Christian Watson knee injury, which could be a big thing for Jaden Reed's workload. As we're seeing 5.3 targets per game, prior to Watson coming back, he was seeing a good 20% target share. Something we could be seeing out of Reed here in the near future if Watson's out for a good bit. 4 targets in his last game, but we're projecting out with him on the field without Watson, seeing a little bit more targets, seeing a little bit more opportunity, maybe more touchdowns on line. Currently has 3 touchdowns on the season, 1 last week and 2 in week 2, but still more targets means more opportunities to score fantasy points. Now we're looking at Elijah Moore, 21.3% target share. Really hard to rely on him. It's really hard. He's on the Browns. Nature of the offense. Up and down. Not many ups. I get it. But again, you're seeing 20% of the targets. You're seeing 7 targets a game. Plus matchups here. You may want to have him in your lineup. Bad matchups, you want to stay away. But still, if you're hurting a wide receiver, look at the landscape here at wide receiver on waivers. There's not many guys to go off of. There's not many guys to grab. You're getting a guy here who's getting a 20% target share. You're going to have to take what you can get. 7 targets per game is a pretty good clip to catch for free. Now we're looking at Rashid Shaheed. Now we're looking at the other end of the spectrum here. He's not getting many targets per game, but still 5. 5 is solid. Last week he saw 8, but we're getting a lot of air yards. Air yards means if he brings in any of these deep targets downfield, you could have a splash week. And those are few and far between as well. However, you have nothing else to gamble on off the waiver wire. So why not go for the boom? And maybe you catch the bust. But why not? And he's getting deep ball city coming his way. And if he brings one in on any given Sunday, you got a big performance. And that could help you win your week. Now we're looking at Josh Reynolds. Because we got a top 10 list here. Or a 10 list. It's not in order. But really, it's hard to put together 10 wide receivers. This is why we stash the running back position and hope for the best at the wide receivers when we turn and burn them off the waiver wire. But again, he saw production early in the season. He saw workload early in the season. When this game script gets pushed on the Lions, he can get volume, and you need him for plus matchups. You don't need him for these down matchups, Tampa Bay, Baltimore, stuff like that, where it's hard for them to move the football. But again, in plus matchups, when you know Goff is going through his progressions, there's going to be a lot of volume. Josh Reynolds is a guy you may want to consider, not a must get. But again, wide receivers off the waiver wire, not a must get anyway. You're just hoping to catch a patch-up job. Let me know what wide receivers you're looking to get off the waiver wire. Who's there for you? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Catch you on the next video.